But right now I wanted to get into the Nats hot stove and the offseason. Winter meetings are going on. They have been busy by the standards of the Nats the last couple of years because they were fielding a staff, putting together all of the coaches around their 33-year-old skipper who we had on the show, Blake Butera. And they have made a significant trade as well. One interesting development, though, there's no team better at the draft lottery than the Nationals. It just so happens more often than not that they're not actually allowed to get the picks that they win because there's these stupid, convoluted rules in Major League Baseball where if you are of a market and you rake in enough money, essentially, you aren't able to pick at the top of the board year in and year out. And this prohibits teams from rebuilding and tanking the way that they have for years, the way the Astros did to get good and the Cubs did to win a World Series and so many others. You're not allowed to anymore. So you can pick number one. Then the following year, you've got to pick outside of the top 10. Then you pick, if you win the pick, as high as number one again. Then the next year, you're in the 9 through 12 range again. And so that's where the Nats are. That every other year, they can undulate between top of the board and not. So they picked 1, then 10, then 2, or vice versa. They picked 2, then 10, then 1, and now they're back to 11. But they have every year either won the lottery or gotten the second pick.
Yeah.
Even in these years where they're not allowed to have it. Like, all the other teams in D.C. need their lottery luck.
Seriously, the Wizards just start rubbing up against Nationals. But it's the way that it's hard to explain, but they draw the numbers as if everyone's eligible. And then if you're not eligible, they just pull it and do it again. So it keeps coming up where it's like, the Nats win it. The Nats won it again. The Nats got second again. And they just keep doing it until they get the right combination. It's so irritating.
The big trade that they made was to send Jose Ferrer, their power lefty, back of the bullpen reliever, touches 101, 100 miles an hour routinely, throws 98, 99, to Seattle in a deal for two players, including Harry Ford, who's a former number 12 overall pick and one of the best prospects in the Mariners organization, a top 5 prospect for them. You'll hear people say he's one of the best catching prospects in baseball. That's probably true. I would say he's one of the 10 best catching prospects in the sport. As a former high draft pick, round 1 guy who's 22 years old, who just finally cracked the big leagues last year for a couple of games, and who is major league ready. He could start on opening day, more likely maybe at 22 that he's in AAA to start the season, and then he's in the big leagues a month or two into the year. But he is a major league ready, fairly finished product that'll have to develop now in the big leagues. I've never been a huge Harry Ford guy as a prospect, to be honest with you. It's not to say I dislike him. I think he's going to be a fine big leaguer. He's like a 50-55 guy for me. I don't really see a ton of ceiling above that. A lot of people look at him for years and say, this is one of the next stars in baseball. Just never really been the way that I viewed him as a prospect dating back to covering him before the draft in 2021. But he is a career 265 hitter in the minors. He's a super athletic catcher. So this is the calling card. This is what's fun. He can hit for some power, 16 home runs last year. I don't think it's going to be huge power, but it'll be requisite average at the position. But he can run. 3 times he's stolen 20 or more bases. Once he stole 35 bases as a catcher. He's uber athletic. This is a guy that, he's one of these, almost like a Craig Biggio.
I was going to say, is he Biggio before the position switch?
He could catch and play second and play center field, like that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they view him as a catcher. I've talked to people over there. He is going to be a catcher. I think they view him as a future catcher. So I love the trade. If it sounds like I'm down on the player a little bit, I just don't think he's a star prospect, a blue chipper, so to speak. I think he's a good prospect, but it's also exactly what they should be doing. This is the type of swing, Danny, they should be trying to take. They traded a reliever in Ferrer, who I love, who I think could ultimately close. Even if he's a setup man left on left, he's a son of a gun.
He's a helpful, yeah.
So good move for Seattle to do this. They have big dumper, Cal Raleigh. So what do you do with little dumper? I don't know if that's his name, but Harry Ford. What do you do with the catcher in the minor leagues? You trade him. And so they're looking to move him. They get a nasty reliever. In Washington's case, I might have just gotten a guy back who's going to catch for me for the next 6-7 years. Keibert Ruiz is not the answer.
No.
This staff knows that. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that.
And to their credit, as an organization, before this group, they took a shot at trying to lock up one of their young guys. It just so happened it blew up in their face. I mean, the Braves do it every other day for a fraction of market value, where they got some superstar for $11, whereas everyone else has to pay through the nose. So they took a shot at it. It didn't work. It blew up in their face to a degree. And this new group, appropriately is saying, we're not just going to do that just because. We're going to have Keibert Ruiz earning $9 million to be our catcher in 2030. we're going to go in a different direction. I think rightfully so.
Yeah, and how much did it really blow up in their face? Keibert Ruiz is going to make $5 million for the next 2 years, then $7 million for a year, and then $9 million for 2, and you're out of it after 2030. $9 million for a guy that's either not on your roster will sting, or for who's a backup is not a great deal. But it's 8 for $50 million. It's not like they paid him $127 million. You know what I mean? So I'm not overly even concerned about keeping him around as a backup catcher type or whatever. But regardless, Ruiz's days as the unquestioned backstop for this team are probably now over, and Harry Ford becomes their catcher of the future. So I dug that. The big question with the Nats is what are they going to do today and over the next few days on the trade market with MacKenzie Gore? There's been a lot of smoke. They're talking to the Orioles, who they've never made a trade with, among other teams, reportedly, about Gore. C.J. Abrams' name has come up on the trade market a lot. Do you think one or both gets dealt?
I don't think the asking price gets met this offseason. It feels like as everybody's kind of shuffling around. Again, this is based on nothing. I'm reading the reports like everybody else. But I think there's a few free agents. I think during the season this year is when Gore gets traded. That's how it feels to me. I think the offseason asking price for 2 full years of MacKenzie Gore might be too high. I think in season, as teams start to have things go poorly, go well, etc., the picture becomes a little clearer, and you'll have a few teams in, and then you get a year and a half, or roughly a year and a half of Gore.
The starting pitching market's not very good at this point. I mean, you've already missed on a couple of the big names that have already landed. So if you are a team that is looking to add a high-end starting pitcher, MacKenzie Gore is as good just about as anybody that's available.
Oh, yeah.
And is way, 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 way cheaper. Also, if you're a mid-market team or a small market team, anywhere from like Milwaukee, Baltimore, these contending clubs that want to go win.
That's got a window for a couple of years.
If you're trying to win a championship, if you're Baltimore and you think you can go make a run, but you know you can't afford the top pitchers on the market, MacKenzie Gore makes great sense because he's on his rookie deal. He's not making huge money. You inherit that contract. You deal with arbitration. But it is a bargain to bring in a number 2 starting pitcher on a first division team, on a playoff caliber team. So I think somebody will meet the asking price. It's just a matter of are they willing to do it right now or do they want to wait? I hated that they didn't do it already because I think 3 postseasons of Gore is more valuable than 2, is more valuable than 1.
Yep.
So I would have done it at the deadline before. They obviously didn't get what they wanted. Fine. I think it's a no-brainer to do it now. 2 full years of him is just a lot more value than 1.5 at the deadline. I also think there's probably more teams right now willing to battle over him because at the deadline, a few of those teams may have not gotten off to fast starts. They're not giving up prospect pieces for this year, especially the mid-market, small-market teams. Maybe if they're not in it anymore, they're not as inclined to try to trade. So I think
that's a good thought.
There's just more suitors at this moment than there will be halfway through this season. And at a time where if you're missing out on these free agents, teams are starting to go, uh-oh, where are we getting our impact starting pitcher from? So I'd like to see them trade him. I think it would be a mistake if Taboni doesn't trade him. I'm going to say they do trade Gore this offseason. Abrams, his name keeps coming up. I don't think they'll trade C.J. Abrams.
I don't either. I would like to. By the way, that's where I would start, to be frank, but I don't think it's gonna balance out and work.
Abrams, I would move to second base and offer an extension at the top of the second base market, I think. Just because an 800 OPS, a guy that could post that at that position doesn't grow on trees. It's really, really hard to find that. And I think you can re-sign him. You can't re-sign Gore, who's advised by Boris, who's going to be a free agent in 2 years. Abrams is not advised by Boris, might take an extension right now, and you could probably get something done. It'd be the first guy of your young stars who have made all-star games that you've ever actually locked up for the future. So I would try to do that. But I bet you he's also got a pretty sizable market if they wanted to dangle him. This middle infielder who's a great athlete who could steal 30 bases and hit 25 to 27 home runs in a big year. I definitely think there's teams that would want him. You're willing to trade him, I'm guessing, because of some of the headaches he's provided, whether it was getting in trouble off the field or the work habits or some of those things.
Yeah, it feels like he needs to go to a place with a better and more dynamic culture where more is expected, right? Where here he's just sort of allowed to do it, and the only reason he got in trouble was he got caught that time. Like, I don't get the sense that he's as dedicated to becoming a superstar as maybe someone with his talent probably could or should. It doesn't feel like he's reaching his ceiling.
With a better clubhouse?
It could.
More veterans. Nobody was accountable for anything. Davey never benched anybody.
Yep.
You could get picked off 3 times in a game and you would start the next day. That was kind of the culture they created. It's the opposite of what Buteris talked about,
Totally.
what Taboni's talked about. I'd like to see what C.J. Abrams looks like in a grown-up clubhouse, which they haven't had since he got
And
here.
maybe they think that's what's going to happen, right? Is you actually have an accountable clubhouse, to your point, and maybe he could thrive. But I worry that now it's too late as entering his age 26 season.
I would trade Gore. I wouldn't trade Abrams, but I have no problem if they do because the rebuild is going to be restarting. So you might as well get as much back as possible. But my predictions are they trade Gore, they don't trade Abrams.
Mine too. I would trade both, but I think it's Gore, yes, Abrams, no.